Hey everyone and welcome to the channel. Today we have another chopping board project and we're going to tackle the Ombre style. Now this isn't the most complicated pattern that's ever existed, but it's one that I personally really like, simply relying on natural gradients of wood. Living in Australia we don't have a huge variety of coloured hardwoods readily available, but I'm doing my best to get some contrast from what I've got access to. If that sounds like something you're into, hang around to see how we made ours. Let's get to work. We're going to start this one off by roughly cutting down our boards into a more manageable length. So I'll pop over to the miter saw and cut these ones down to about 600mm or 24 inch, so they're a little easier to work with. Now that we've got our woods cut down to size, it's time to head over to the joiner and square up those edges to ensure they're perfectly flat. The joiner is your best friend when it comes to achieving straight and smooth edges. Start by setting the depth of cut on the joiner. You want to remove just enough material to straighten out any rough or uneven spots. With the joiner set up, we'll carefully guide each piece of wood along the fence and over the cutter head. Keep a firm grip on the board and maintain steady pressure to ensure a consistent cut across the entire length of the board. Before heading to the table saw, we need to run our squared boards through the planer for that extra smooth finish. Set the planer to the desired thickness, keeping in mind our target width of about 30mm. Adjust the infeed and outfeed tables accordingly to support the boards as they pass through the planer. Keep a close eye on the thickness gauge to ensure consistent results across all the boards. Alright, now that we've squared up our boards, it's time to rip them to width on the table saw. We're aiming for about 30mm or 1.25 inch wide strips. Once everything's set up, carefully feed each board through the table saw, keeping them hard up against the fence to ensure consistent widths. After all the boards have been ripped to width, take a moment to double check your measurements. The measurement itself isn't super important, just that they are at least all the same. With our boards now cut to width, we're one step closer to bringing together our Ombre style end grain chopping board. Now that we have our boards squared, planed and ripped to width, it's time to bring them together with some glue. Start by laying out your boards in the desired pattern, ensuring a nice blend of colours for that ombre effect. Once you have the look you're chasing, it's time to get gluing. For this project, I chose Type Bond 3, known for its water resistant properties, making it perfect for kitchen use. Apply a generous amount of Type Bond 3 along one edge of each board, spreading it evenly with a glue brush. Be sure to work quickly to prevent glue from drying too quickly. Once all the edges are coated, carefully align the boards and clamp them together firmly. You want to apply enough pressure for a strong bond, but not so much that you risk warping the boards. With the boards clamped together, wipe away any excess glue with a damp cloth and let them dry for at least 24 hours. This ensures a solid bond that will withstand many hard years in the kitchen. So here's the plan. Gently remove the clamps and inspect the boards for any black marks. I never seem to learn, but we only have little black marks from the clamps today. Don't worry, we'll fix them in a sec. The planer should whip them straight off. And back to the planer we go. Carefully feed each board through the planer, taking light passes to avoid tear out and ensure a uniform thickness across all the boards. Patience is the key, don't rush. Now that our boards are as smooth as silk, it's time to square off the ends on the miter saw before we head over to the table saw for cross cutting. Carefully position each board against the fence and make your cuts to square off the ends. With the ends squared off, it's back to the table saw for final cross cutting. Set up your table saw with a fence set to the thickness of your end grain slices. I've got mine set to about 45mm or 1.75 inch. Carefully feed each board through the table saw, making sure to use a push stick. This cut is a little too close to our fingers. This technique involves staggering the slices to create a gradual transition of colours, enhancing the ombre effect and adding depth to the design. I'm going to experiment a little with offsetting the slices by varying their position slightly, allowing the colours to blend seamlessly from one shade to the next. Take your time to play around with the different arrangements, ensuring each slice complements the one next to it. And that looks pretty cool. I'll strike a line across the board so it's easy to line them back up again, and we can go on to the final glue up. Apply a generous amount of wood glue to each slice, then flip them all back up using our line as a reference. It's pretty hot in here today, and I can feel the glue tacking up really quickly, but I'm pretty sure we can get this done in time. Press each slice firmly into place, ensuring a tight bond between the layers. Pay close attention to any offsetting pieces to maintain the ombre effect throughout the board. And that's looking like it all lined up pretty well, so I'll crank down on the clamps and leave this one to dry. Now that our glue is dried and our end grain chopping board is starting to take shape, it's time to remove the clamps and square up the edges. To square up the board, we'll first use the miter saw to trim off the excess. I'm not sure there's a good way to do this, but I'll just hold it hard up against the fence and hope it's close enough. Next, we'll head back to the table saw and make the final adjustments and ensure all the edges are perfectly square. I'll set up the table saw by lining it up by eye. Damn it, the blade isn't high enough, and apparently that flustered me and I didn't turn the camera back on for a second pass, but you get the idea. With our really professional operation firing on all cylinders, I can head over to the drum sander and get it nice and flat. I'll start with really light passes, flipping the board in between passes to try and avoid excess heat buildup. A drum sander isn't an essential tool to have to do this job, but it sure makes life a lot easier. If you take your time during the glue up, it wouldn't be too bad with a handheld belt sander or even an orbital with a really coarse grit. Once the surface is smooth and uniform, it's time to add a professional touch with a 3mm round over on all edges using a router. I'll carefully guide the router along each edge, taking care to maintain a consistent radius. After rounding over the edges, it's time to sand the entire board to smooth out any remaining imperfections and achieve a smooth finish. I'll start with 60 grit sandpaper to remove any rough spots and then gradually work my way up to 120. Here's a handy trick. Use a pencil mark to mark the surface of the board between grits. This will help you track your progress and ensure you've sanded each area evenly. Before going on to our last grit, I'll spray down the board with a little water to pop the grain. As the water seeps into the wood fibres, you'll notice the grain starting to swell and becoming more pronounced. I'll leave this one to dry completely before we do our finish sanding. Now that it's dry, I'll buzz it all over with a 240 grit to get it nice and smooth. Before the finish, I'll quickly add some little rubber chopping board feet. Using a set square, I'll find a mark that looks like it's inset from the edges a good amount and pre-drill all the holes. And then carefully screw the feet into place. Pour on the mineral oil and wipe it into the wood in smooth, even strokes. Ensure the oil coats the surface thoroughly, covering every inch of the board. Once the chopping board is fully coated with mineral oil, allow it to soak in for about 20 to 30 minutes, giving the oil time to penetrate as deep as we can into that end grain. After the soaking period, use a clean dry cloth to wipe off any excess oil from the surface of the board. Repeat this process several times, applying additional coats of mineral oil as needed until the wood stops absorbing it. Finally, allow the chopping board to dry completely for at least 24 hours, giving the oil ample time to fully penetrate and protect that wood. The final step, a coat of carnauba wax. Using a clean cloth, apply a thin layer of carnauba wax into the entire surface of the board. Work the wax into the wood using circular motions, ensuring even coverage. Once the wax has been applied to the entire surface, allow it to dry for a few minutes. Then, using a clean dry cloth, buff the surface of the board to a smooth, medium sheen finish. And there we have it. the Ombre style end grain chopping board. It never ceases to amaze me how cool a simple end grain chopping board can look if you take the time to arrange everything carefully. Thanks for watching the video everyone. If you liked it, please consider giving the video a like and subscribing to the channel. See you on the next one!